Welcome back to the Rich Dad Stockcast. I'm your host, Denney, and today we're talking about something that doesn't get enough attention in investing. That's our psychology. Now, because the truth is, wealth isn't just built with strategies, it's built with thinking, with behavior, with discipline. Two people can have access to the same opportunities, the same information, even the same capital, and end up with completely different results. So today we're breaking down what separates the wealthy from everyone else, and it starts in the mind. And joining me today is Rich Dad expert Andy Tanner, who's seen firsthand how mindset impacts financial outcomes. Now, before we dive into this part of our Stockcast, go to stockcastbonus.com, grab your free investing tools. If you want to upgrade how you think about money, that's where you start. Andy, welcome back.
Thanks, Del. Everything's always the most important thing we've ever done, right? This is the most important game we've ever played. This is the most important thing we've ever bought. But truly, what we're about to speak about today is, I can't think of anything that is more relevant, central, vital. This is going to be a great discussion, and the challenge is it takes a great psychology to understand the great psychology. So I hope people are prepared and teachable. Might ask yourself and check yourself, right? How teachable am I? Where am I on the education continuum? Do I know everything? Is this just a talk about psychology and mindset that doesn't make money? Or is it as central as Andy says? Well, maybe stay tuned and see, because it is central, foundational. Context is everything.
Indeed. And so speaking of teachable, for those that love to learn, stockcastbonus.com, amazing resources there. What do our listeners receive when they go there?
Well, you mentioned we're going to talk about the way rich people think, and it's chock full of great stuff there. Go get your free downloads, sign up for all that stuff at no cost. And that's a great signal right there. Is about mentality. Is if Robert said, "Hey, I was, Andy, I'll give you some knowledge and I won't even charge you for it." That's only upside. That's no downside. You pounce on that, and whatever it is that would stop anyone from taking him up on a deal like that, that would reveal a psychology that is unbelievably flawed. Whether it could be laziness. It could be, I'm afraid to believe, because if I believe, then I might get hurt if it doesn't work out. It could be fear. It could be any manner of things, but there literally is no financial downside. So that's a real clue right there about how wealthy people think and how poor people think. So we'll have a lot to say about this. This is going to be a great discussion.
All right,
I think it's massive.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. So let's just start with the beginning. Why is mindset so important? Let's just start with that very basic question. Why is the mindset so important?
Well, the body, the mind runs the body. Everything I do, if I stand up and walk somewhere, if I pick up the phone and call someone, if I crank out an email, everything I do starts with the brain and what's happening in my head. How I think determines my habits. It determines my attitude. It's mental health and mental fitness and mental temperament financially. The mind runs the body. The mind runs the decisions. It decides everything. Its greatest burden and greatest asset is decision making good ones or bad ones. And those decisions that we make are based on intelligence, but more than anything, it's based on our attitude, our mindset, and how we see the world. The greatest teacher ever, and as all the teachers I had, there's not a close second. There really isn't. There's some distant seconds and thirds by people who have been taught by him. But Robert Kiyosaki has a better grasp of the importance of concept than any human I've met. And he always begins his teaching by setting the context so people are thinking about things in a better way, generally. Now, as a basketball player, if I showed you a couple of my big game-winning plays, you couldn't pick up your board fast enough if you're a coach. But the fact of the matter is the defensive principles that win the games. And so people think that it's in the detail. They think it's in the advice, first of all. Hey, Andy, if you had $10,000, what would you do with that money? Should I buy gold? If I said yes, you'd make no strides intellectually, right? So there is a problem And we'll discuss several. It might be a little longer podcast than we want, but there are mental issues and mindset problems that I have seen, and I see them so easy now because I've been doing this for 30 years all over the world. I've spoken to a million people. I know exactly what gets in the way. So yeah, we can talk about that, some of those pitfalls and mindsets for sure. Whatever order we want.
I think that's important to do because let's talk about the pitfalls. And I think it's important to address these because there's people that are probably have pitfalls that are unaware that they have pitfalls. They're doing this thing, they don't realize it's hurting them. So what are some of the pitfalls that people are maybe self-sabotaging themselves with?
Okay, number one is if you go to the temple at Delphi, those ruins, there's Thales of Miletus. I say his name wrong. It's Thales of Miletus, or however you say it, Miletus, however it is. He's the first of the great Greek sages. And he said, "Know thyself." And I've told this story before. It's worth retelling. I was on a flight, couldn't sleep, had a big presentation, had a horrible night. Never usually sleep on planes. And I fall asleep on this flight going to Vegas, just an hour, and I fall asleep. When I wake up, I had the window first class, and this guy had the aisle, and he gets up, and he's in the overhead bin already by the time I wake up. We're at the gate. And I look down in the little pedestal table thing between our chairs, and there's a little thing of Listerine breath strips on there. I said, "Hey, sir, you left your breath strips." He goes, "Oh, no, those are for you." What? And I just picture myself just killing this guy as I'm, killing this guy. And I call my wife. I go, "Man, I have one of those really cool, water pick oscillating, it's like a car wash for your mouth. It's shooting out water and vibrating sonic stuff, and, I love the tongue brush and the tongue. I go for it in there, right? And I'm like, man, I must have a cavity or something. So I call Marcy. "Hey, give me a dentist appointment." So anyway, I go and I've got Altoids and breath mints all day, and I'm nervous speaking. I'm keeping people at social distance, even though it's not social distance. And I'm just thinking I'm got halitosis. Well, I get on the flight to go home. This time I'm awake. And as soon as we take off and the flight attendant can kind of deliver stuff, she's got a big basket with a promotion of Listerine strips she's passing out to every single person on the plane. So I was asleep, and so mine got put on the thing. So he's right. They were mine, but not in the way I thought I was receiving them, right? Well, this is called blindness, where we're not sensitive to our own halitosis. And just as I can have a lack of smell of maybe I'm doing it wrong, we have cognitive blind spots. And I think that's one of the reasons that Thales of Miletus said, "Know yourself, know your weakness, know your blind spots, know the little things that you don't even know subconsciously." We know so much more about neuroscience now and how it screws up people's brains to be scared of what they shouldn't be scared of and to be lazy. Our brains are designed for something for nothing. We would love to get a meal with no caloric expenditure, just like a cheat in the Serengeti. We would love to get something for nothing. So what happens, combine that with the idea that talking about things and imagining things often gives the same dopamine hit as doing them. If you begin to think about being wealthy, you start to feel well. As you imagine a perfect life, it feels good. And so people turn into podcasts to hear about it and to talk about it, and they can't wait to hear the next episode because they feel like things are happening when they're really not. So it's these types of mental blocks that hurt us. But I will tell you, when you begin with a context that you're fighting, working for money, going to school, get a job, that's something that's fed and neural pathways get established that make it very, very hard for people to even realize that their mindset is a poor mindset. Robert used to chew me out all the time whenever I'd think small or whether my mind was too small or not thinking the right way. He would just chew my butt out. And I can't say that he was wrong. He made a lot of sense. So the overall idea of knowing yourself and knowing that you're not built perfectly and that there's a lot of counterintuitive things, the inability to maybe have a little bit of delayed gratification where the body wants the sugar right now. The information we're consuming is taste bud oriented, not brain cell oriented. In other words, if I take a stalk of broccoli and a jelly bean, one's certainly more nutritious and healthy for me, but my taste buds wouldn't let me know that. My taste buds would deceive me. Well, the same is true with intellectual food. And as we click and as we scroll, we're not making progress, but we're feeling the dopamine as if we are. And so that laziness and that inability to act and only imagine, I'd say that's one of the number one problems is action makes money. Clicking the mouse and buying the stock makes money. Putting the offering on the real estate gets the real estate. Not just reading about it or podcasting about it, but having a mentor take you by the hand and say, let's actually do something is a big part of this mindset. To segue in to a next one, maybe this will give a good follow-up question. I don't know. But I would say one of the major differences that I see between people that make it and people that don't was something that a psychologist, I forgive me, I've forgotten their name now, getting old, but you can Google it. She came up with this thing called locus of control, and that's a mindset thing. In other words, do I control my life, or does the externals control my life? So, for example, is my spouse, a raging maniac that I can't live with? Is my boss an unfair, brutal dictator? Is the president of the United States the wrong guy or the right guy in the White House? We can go every 4 years, we can argue that. Is it the Fed? Is all these external things? Is it the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? All these external things. But what I found, well, those do exist, sickness, cancer, all that stuff is external that lands on you. But what I've found is the people that become wealthy, they have a tremendous internal locus of control. Whether it was they believe those factors exist and they can impact things, but they think their decision making is higher than any victimhood, higher than any bias or negative thing in their life. Any victimhood is shed because they believe when they get up in the morning, they have the ability to make decisions of what to learn, what to do, how to recover mistakes. And they just believe they have an ability to change their own lives. Where people who are victims say, well, the government needs to fix this. My work needs to fix this. My spouse needs to be different. And they lack the ability to say, no, I can have a locus of control where I can impact all of these things to the point where I find the ones I can control, and that's usually enough to make some progress. So that locus of control thing is huge as I watch people. The mindset of capital gain over cash flow. We can talk to more of them after the break, because I got a million of these things where I can say poor people think this way, rich people think unlimited.
Well, I have a pitfall I want to ask you as well, but let's do it after the break. Listener, if wealth is driven by behavior, then changing results start with changing how you think. So when we come back, Andy's going to break down the habits and the mental frameworks wealthy investors use to stay disciplined, to be consistent and successful over time. So don't forget to go to stockcastbonus.com, grab your free resources. That's where mindset turns into action. Stick around. We'll be right back.
So far, it's been great. I needed a source where I could really enrich my education through stocks. I didn't really have an avenue for it, and it's helped me a lot. The simplicity has really gotten me on the track to where I enjoy the learning, as well as it's really solidifying in my mind. And like, they're not just trying to sell you something, they really care about the people that are in the course, and they really do care about you and your personal goals, and what you want to do is to help you and your family and whatever your goals are in life through that. So it's really been great.
Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. Andy, let's get practical. I want to start with one more pitfall, and if you want to add more pitfalls, certainly go ahead, because I think it's pertinent. But there's a pitfall that just drives me bonkers, and I hear people say this: "I know it already. I know that. That drives me crazy." No, you don't know that. You just open your. What do you say to someone like that when they're so close minded?
I don't say anything. I walk away. I mean, what are you going to teach people like that? I mean, what motive would I have to? I remember Robert was speaking one time, and we had this guy, smart guy, he's a doctor, smart guy. You can't get through med school without being smart. But Robert said something like this, he says, your house is not an asset. And this guy just got bent out of shape. I can't even remember where we were in the world, but it must have been English because they were bantering. And he says, what do you mean my house is not an asset? He started to make this case of why his house was an asset. And I thought, dude, you better be careful. Robert's a Marine, man. He'll hop off that stage and do his Marine stuff to you and snap your neck or something. I don't know. But I was really interesting in that case. Robert just ignored him, just went over this. I mean, why? Robert's worth, however many hundreds of millions. I don't know what he's worth. I don't know his net worth or his cash flow, but I know it's big, and I know it's bigger than that guy's. So why should he get down on his hands and knees and say, oh, please change your mindset. Please think that, differently about your home as a liability, something that costs money around it. Please not. When people say that to me, I say, well, go ahead and think that way then. But for those that are teachable, I point to the education continuum, because what the education continuum does is it allows us to have room for improvement and not to get into the trap of thinking we know things or we don't. Education isn't black and white. It exists on a continuum. At one end is ignorance, and you can go further into ignorance. Like AI, I'm getting more and more ignorant every day because it's changing so much. So if we're not working, we'll be dumber. Imagine taking someone from Galileo's time and putting them here. We wouldn't know anything. Guy'd be dumber than heck because we have so much we've learned. So if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. Ignorance. Awareness. Now you've gotten rid of the halitosis. Now you know something new, know something to fix, something to do better, right? Number 3, competency. Oh, I know enough I could get an A on the test. 4, proficiency. I could do it. And then how well can I do it? That continuum goes on. So when someone says, Andy, do you understand technical analysis? I'd say, well, I would place myself on the proficiency place, but certainly with massive room to learn more. If someone said, Andy, what do you know about AI? I'd say I'm awareness. I'm aware of what it is, not even close to competent. You ask me about how to play the violin, ignorant. I wouldn't even know where to start. I'd probably put it in the wrong hands. So education, people think because they've heard of what an option is and could describe it, they think they know it now, and they think binary like that. So if you want to be teachable, use the education continuum, and you just say, when it comes to any topic, like the several I've listed, when it comes to zookeeping, where are you on the continuum? When it comes to real estate and raising cash, raising equity, where are you on the continuum? And that there's always room to improve. And so that's why that's an effective tool. So if the guy was arrogant, said, oh, I know all this, I'd say, well, good luck. What are you listening to me for then? Go be successful. Knock yourself out. But if they were saying, I think I'm a little teachable. Do you see anything I'm missing? I go, well, I'll give you a couple ideas. Maybe you give me some too.
I love that. Maybe you can give me something. We always can learn from other people. I've realized it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's anyone can teach us anything. Someone told me that once, and I couldn't agree more. Now, shifting our gears from pitfalls to what we should do. Habits are so important. What are some daily habits the wealthy use to build a wealth building mindset?
Well, if I may, before we get into the action, because habits are what you do, and habits are what you do without thinking. You have a habit of doing something without even thinking about it. So that's truly the best habit. So before we move off the psychology of it, a couple other things there I'd like to share. I'll give you an example of mindset. Are you chasing money or are you chasing assets? That's a big one. Most people chase money. If you ask someone, what they have in their 401k, they'll give you a dollar figure. That's not true. They'll say, I got $100,000 in my 401k. No, you don't. You have an inventory of mutual funds. You have no cash in there. You have an inventory of mutual funds that people say and claim would be worth this much if you sold it today. And what a lot of people do is the reason they want to buy low and sell high is they want the cash instead of the asset. They only want the asset temporarily. They want to buy it low and then get rid of it because they're chasing cash. Well, cash is losing value as we speak. Inflation is deteriorating cash. As the Fed does their thing, the value of cash goes down. So the mindset of chasing cash is not it. We simply receive the cash, and the very second we get it, we try to get rid of it again and buy another asset. And the problem is that produces even more cash, the thing we don't want. So we want the asset. So we spend the money and get more asset. I remember Robert called me once. He goes, "Hey, what do you think of the price of silver?" I says, "I don't know. I got a crystal ball. What do you think?" He goes, "Well, I just got a big, money back from a real estate project that got sold and got a few $1,000,000 here. And I just got to get it. I got to get rid of it." And that's a mindset, right? I mean, the very day someone hands him, a healthy, 7-figure windfall, he's like, "Oh man, I got cash. This is going to lose all its worth. I got to get this out in an asset right now." So when I get a Zillow report, the Zillow sends me this stuff in the email for all the, a house comes and it says, "Oh, your house is down $100,000 this year." No, it's not. It's still the same square feet and still at same acres and still the same location, same number of bedrooms, same value it can give to someone. Shelter. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. It's just people chasing the cash all the time. If you set a goal to get more shares, more doors, more entities, more businesses, and she said, "I want more asset," without chasing the cash, the assets would tend to stay in your asset column rather than be bought low and sold high, or sometimes bought low and sold lower when you panic. So the idea that you're building assets rather than chasing cash, and that the cash is more valuable, or that the asset is more valuable than the cash, that speaks volumes to people that are wealthy, because they don't want cash. They want to be invested. They want assets, and those assets produce cash for the sole purpose of buying more assets. That's a wealthy mindset.
All right. Back to habits. Wealthy habits. What are the wealthy habits that someone should incorporate? Not should, but maybe you could suggest. No one should do anything, but what's something that we could suggest?
Yeah, a good business. My business partner is the best I've ever met at this. A good business. I'm so lucky to have him. A good business, you study KPIs as a habit, and you learn what the key performance indicators are, and you look at them frequently. So in our business, we look at them weekly, and we say, okay, what do we need to do to tweak this or fix this or move this? And that allows you to create wealth by creating cash flow patterns in your financial statement that lead to greater wealth. So if a person were to do that personally as a family, and my wife and I do it once a week, we have a little meeting once a week where we look at the 6 important numbers of a financial statement, which to me are, this is my opinion, are income, expense, net income, what some people call cash flow, assets, liabilities, and not net worth. That's not the 6th one. I don't care about net worth. Buying power would be my 6th one. But we look at, because that lets you buy the assets. So you look at those 6 numbers every week and you say, what do we got to tweak? That's a great habit. And what do we want the cash flow pattern to look like? Do we want it to be through a job, and then I take some money and buy an asset, and the asset produces cash? Or do we want to start with a bank or private equity and borrow the money into the liability column, trade that cash we borrowed for an asset, and then have it produce and then repay through expense? The cash flow pattern is very important as you build your wealth plan. What type of cash flow pattern you want to build, and those KPIs tell you what money goes where, and then you tweak them just like you would a business. So that's how I would go about it. A habit of KPIs, a habit of watching what those are, measuring them, and then adjusting them on a weekly basis.
Now, I learned that from the same person that you're talking about, which I think is so important. And that leads me to my next question, and that's really our environment. Our environment affects us.
Yeah.
How do mentors and peers and communities influence results?
For that question of the environment, my mind goes to Josh and Lisa Lannon. They wrote a book called The Social Capitalist, where capitalism, but for the greater good as well. You can have both. And these guys work with people who need to change psychology and habits in a grave way. They work a lot with people who've had trauma, people who've gotten on the bottle a little bit, maybe some drug use, and they help these people out and help get them clean on the straight and narrow. And he once told me this. I remember like it was yesterday. God, I'm grateful for these lessons, man. He said, look at what is around you, look at what is on you, and look at what is in you. And he said, look at those things. And when you look at what's around me, your environment, willpower does not overcome environment. If a person is trying to drink less, they can't be around that stuff, right? It can't be in their environment, because eventually the environment will win, right? What are the things that are you carrying on you? What do you carry? What do you got to set down, whether mentally or physically? And what is inside of you, right? Great questions to ask. I really also think, as far as the environment, who you hang out with is really important. Really important. And there might be people that might seem very, very helpful, but maybe they're not over the long term. You've got to really look at who you hang out with and how often. And I don't think you should disown people that, I don't think you should ostracize or disavow people or ostracize people and, turn someone into a pariah. But as far as the people you spend the majority of your time with and those environments, pretty important to wealth.
Well said. Final question. If someone wants to start thinking like a wealthy investor today, what's one action? And we talk about action, how important action is. What should they do this week?
That's a pitch over the plate. Go to stockcastbonus.com and download your stuff that's waiting there for you. Oh, it will change your mindset. And as we said, the results we get by moving our body around starts in the mind. And you can trace every single thing back, good or bad, of the decisions we make or how we react to that adversity is with the mind. If I'm a victim, I can absolutely say, see, I'm a victim. I can prove it. No one's going to disagree. But I also say, yeah, now how am I going to react to that now? And that freedom and that internal locus of control helps. So, let's take it back to that first test. We have thousands of people, watch the channel. And I say, all right, go get some free stuff. And if a person, can't take good free stuff, well, that tells you right there, their mindset is and I don't know what it is, whatever it is that, what are you going to do? It's kind of like that guy arguing with Robert. What am I going to do? It's their form if they want to learn, just like it was for that guy. Robert's right there for him to learn from. And the guy's worried about arguing with Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, oh my gosh, I just shake my head at that. But that's the mindset. It seems pretty nutty, right? Robert's on stage saying, here, I have this knowledge to give you. Guy shows up to get knowledge, and then he decides, no, my house is an asset just because I bought one, and I don't like how it feels when you tell me that. Taste buds instead of brain cells. I don't like how it feels when you tell me that. So I'll just say, hey, if you want to get going, go to stockcastbonus.com, get your free stuff, and that's a great test. Where's your mindset at? You either do it or you won't. So, go do it.
There you go. Very simple. Thank you so much, Andy. Listeners, wealth isn't just about what you do. It's how you think. And once you shift your mindset, your decisions start to change, and so do your results. And again, big thank you to Andy Tanner for breaking this down for us. So many great stories, analogies, and education that came from that. If you want to build the mindset and discipline of a successful investor, go to stockcastbonus.com right now. Again, you'll find free tools and education designed to help you to think smarter and really invest with confidence. And if this episode gave you any value, make sure you like it, subscribe, share it with someone who's ready to level up their financial thinking. You're not here by accident. You're building something that most people won't. So stay smart, stay invested, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Del.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.